Okay, so you mentioned being fascinated by how shows like Succession really tap into those anxieties we have, like about wealth and power. It's like we're glued to these characters even when they're just awful, especially to each other.
Yeah, it's true. And there's this really interesting shift happening right now in um, how we portray wealthy people, on screen.
Exactly. And that's what's so fascinating about the article that you shared. It compares Succession to Industry, which you might know. They both really dive deep into that world of finance, but what's got people talking is how they both kind of go beyond just saying, oh, the rich are terrible.
Yes, they seem to be reflecting this deeper understanding that it's not just about kind of hating the wealthy, but it's the way that their own systems and behaviors lead to this kind of like almost inevitable implosion.
It's like these shows are holding up a mirror and the 1%, they don't like what they see. I mean, remember Triangle of Sadness? That whole movie just felt like this big middle finger to the ultra rich with, that whole cruise ship ending in disaster.
Right, or even earlier seasons like
Yeah.
of White Lotus where the wealthy characters are basically just obstacles, for the less fortunate characters to have to kind of overcome.
Yes. But Succession and Industry, they take a different approach. I mean, instead of just focusing on how the wealthy are, like, exploiting those outside their circle, they show us the carnage they inflict on each other.
And this is where it gets really interesting, right? Like, um, take Shiv's whole, like, maneuvering to block Kendall from becoming CEO and Succession. I mean, it wasn't just about greed, right? It was all fueled by their toxic family dynamics, the years of, like, competition and simmering resentment.
Totally. And that's something the Industry explores too, but like through this lens of generational trauma. The
Mhm.
article talks about Yasmin and Henry, and they kind of bond over these like really messed up families.
And what's so intriguing is how, like, these shows suggest that rather than wealth being an escape from that baggage, it can actually make it so much worse.
It's like all that money their parents have just creates a whole other level of dysfunction.
Absolutely. Like, look at Eric in Industry. He's this successful trader, but you can see him kind of mirroring his own father, emotionally distant. And it's like all the sins of the father, amplified by wealth and privilege, just keep playing out.
And then Yasmin's whole world just unravels when all those scandals about her dad hit the news. She's got money connections, the whole nine yards, but it all seems so fragile.
It's a stark contrast to someone like Henry, though, wouldn't you say?
Right.
He's got that untouchable kind of wealth.
Yeah.
Like nothing sticks to him no matter what he does. It really goes to show that even within the elite, there are levels to this game.
Speaking of untouchable, we have to talk about that scene in Succession where Greg's freaking out because he might only inherit $5 million, $5 million, and Tom calls him, what was it, the world's tallest dwarf?
Right. It's just perfect. It really sums up how the Roys see the world. $5 million is a fortune to most people, but to them, it's a joke.
And then there's the fact that Logan spent, what, $5 million on his mausoleum? It's like even in death, he's still trying to one-up everyone. Like money's the ultimate buffer, even for our final moments.
It's a pretty morbid thought, but it speaks to just how distorted their reality is. And then you've got Rishi in Industry, who loses everything, like absolutely everything,
Uh-huh.
because of his gambling debts.
It's like he was trying to buy his way into their world, or maybe out of it. Who knows?
It's an interesting thought, but as crazy as Rishi's story is, he's kind of an outlier, right?
Uh,
The article points out that most of those Industry characters actually land on their feet, even after some major, major mess-ups.
It's like having that much money is a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Pretty much. In the world of these shows, anyway. Extreme wealth equals an extreme safety net. It's a far cry from that whole eat the rich thing we've seen before.
So it's more nuanced than that.
Way more Succession and Industry. They're saying that often the really, really wealthy are their own worst enemies. Like they're trapped in this system that just eats itself.
So where does that leave us? It can't just be as simple as wanting to see the wealthy get their comeuppance right.
It's more about recognizing the human cost of all that power
Mm.
and the systems that keep it all going. Asking ourselves those hard questions about wealth and privilege and how they can twist even our closest relationships. These shows, they're fun to watch, but they also make us think about some pretty uncomfortable stuff.
It's like they're saying money can't buy happiness, but with a much darker twist.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes, as we see with these characters, it can make things a whole lot worse.
Well, there you have it. The world of Succession and Industry, where the drama isn't just about who has the most money, but what it costs them to keep it. Definitely something to think about next time you find yourself glued to the screen.